Hello. I don't know if you can even hear it. I put on like light jazz in the background because it seemed awkward being quiet, but I don't think you can hear it, so I'm just going to turn it off. Hello. Welcome. We are in emote only because I'm just going to be talking today, and then I'm going to go. Yeah, it was very, very low. There's no need. It felt weird leaving you in silence, but I'm here, so. Hello. I want to talk about something today that I'm very nervous. I feel sweaty. I had a sweater on. I had to take it off. I'm going to try and I wrote down pretty much everything I think that I want to say to keep track of sort of all the points that I want to make sure I don't forget anything. So I will be reading from something a good portion of the time, but not 100% of the time. And I just wanted to make sure I got all of my thoughts down in words ahead of time. I really like writing down my thoughts. So I did that. Oh, hold on. Can I turn ads off? I think that maybe we turn ads off today. How do I make that happen for just today? Should have had that already. I actually don't even know how to make that happen. You know what? That's just going to have to be that way. I'm so sorry. I'm all good. Yeah, okay. Today's just going to be talking. I'm just going to start reading from what I wrote and go from there. I have a really big coffee. I'm going to take a swig. And I have my water, and I'm going to take a swig of that. I have always liked telling my different experiences that I've had in dating because it feels important to me to share what I've learned and maybe help other people to not make the same mistakes that I have before. I'm 30. I've dated a lot. I've gone on a lot of dates. I keep trying. And it's unfortunate that a lot of my dating history, there were a lot of bad people that tried to manipulate or control me. But that's not to say that every person that I've dated has treated me poorly. Some people just weren't the right people. And speaking out about my bad experiences has never felt as important as it does right now, because silence has always brought me peace. And this time it feels like my silence is not keeping my peace. It's only keeping somebody else's peace. And I never thought that I could be the kind of person to end up in a situation like I did. I never thought that could happen to me. And so for me, this is important because it could help anybody else see the signs sooner than I did, or hopefully avoid a similar situation entirely, because the truth is, it was dangerous. There were a lot of things wrong in this relationship that I endured some pretty terrible treatment. And I might touch on some things here and there about that, but if I feel like it's important to the overall context. But what I want to stay focused on is this specific issue, and the things that happened matter-of-factly, and the things that people saw and witnessed in our circle. It took me 10 months after to heal, and I spoke with multiple therapists and tried different forms of therapy. I tried somatic therapy. That one was actually really good for me. Because that one actually helped me release a lot of built up anger I was having over the last year. But the anger that I was feeling was for myself, because I felt like I should have known better. I felt so stupid at myself for sort of just staying through all of this. And I shared my story with a lot of friends after I started talking to therapists, and I was like, so this thing happened, and I wasn't really sure. It just seems weird now to me looking back, and all of them told me exactly what was happening in the words that I was too afraid to use. And I was being hurt in my last relationship. And it took me all of that time to see it through that lens. I even posted an anonymous story to Reddit that I have now deleted with an anonymous account. But in posting that, I found a dozen other stories that were exactly like mine, exactly the same way. And all of the comments said exactly the same thing. And I was so mad at myself because I was lying too, at a certain point to protect this person, because I knew that if I told my friends the truth, it'd make him look really bad. I didn't think that I would cry. And I practiced saying all of this and I didn't cry, but it's easier to practice it when no one is listening. But he always cared more about how it looked, and that was really important, not what was true. And it was really subtle. When I hear about physical abuse, I think of hitting. I think of hitting and punching. So I thought that this wasn't violent enough to be abuse. I thought that it was just like a constant accident that he kept hurting me. But he's not hitting me. And it didn't start as something that he did to hurt me. He had this habit of biting, which is so weird to me now, but he said that he had had this habit since he was a kid, and even his mom said that that was true. And he said it was just affectionate, and that might have been, I mean, I think that might have been true maybe at the start, but I also feel that I have good reason to believe that every part of it was a lie, but that's just my personal opinion. And I had no problem with just biting. That isn't even the most uncommon thing. But he did mention something early that I should have taken as a red flag. And he wanted to make sure that I was okay with him biting me, because he didn't want me to come back later and say that he abused me, which I thought was really weird considering he had never hurt me before. And so why would I call it abuse? And why was he thinking about that? And I thought he was being sweet, checking on me to make sure that I was still comfortable. But of course I was, because he hadn't hurt me. And why would I think he ever would? And then he did for the first time by accident. And I don't specifically remember the actual first time that he bit me too hard by accident, because I didn't think that it would be significant. I thought that it would only happen once. And he started biting me more and more over a period of time, sort of throughout the whole relationship. And accidents of him biting too hard and really hurting me happened more and more frequently. But he always seemed genuinely sorry. And he decided that he didn't want to keep accidentally hurting me. So we were going to use a safe word. So he could learn where my limit was, where my pain tolerance ended. And saying that out loud now doesn't sound like, that's not very sound logic. But at the time I thought he cared about not hurting me. But in reality, it's like, why are you biting so hard? And why do you have to bite so hard? And it shouldn't be that hard of a problem to stop. That shouldn't be that hard. And he disguised it as this really quirky part of our relationship and was so comfortable sharing it with his friends, to the point that he would do it in front of them. He thought it was this really funny story to tell and a good bit to take my arm and bite me in front of everybody until I literally shout in pain. And then I have to laugh it off because I'm so embarrassed and I don't want to cause a scene in front of all of our friends. And I'm sure everyone was a little bit uncomfortable, but as long as I was saying that it was fine, nobody really felt like they needed to be concerned, and that's not anybody's fault, because I was lying. I was lying, and it wasn't fine, because I would go home later, and I'd tell him how uncomfortable I was, how much I didn't like being hurt all the time, and I needed him to really stop biting so hard. I didn't like it, and I tried telling him over and over again, because he wasn't actually trying at all to not hurt me. But he said he would try at first. And then he started saying things like it was my pain tolerance that was too low, or I'm exaggerating how much it actually hurts. He's not even biting that hard. I'm being dramatic. But his biting escalated to a point where I was covered in bruises all over my arms, and they hurt, and he would poke at them for fun. And he even felt so comfortable showing off my bruises that he had caused to our friends because he would bite me so hard by accident. By accident, he would even joke that it looked like he abused me. And eventually he did acknowledge how bad it looked that I was covered in bruises all the time. So he stopped biting my arms as often, and he started biting my legs instead. And it was in the last couple of months of the relationship that every time he bit me, it was until I needed to use this safe word. It had become his benchmark for when to stop. Only once I was definitely hurt, which meant I was being hurt every single day, multiple times a day, for all of the days that we spent together in person. And when I asked him to stop again, this time he said, "This is who he is. He isn't going to change." Those were his words. And I remember a lot of specifically his words about certain things, especially at the end, because I'm good at remembering words. And especially his wording, I became really good at remembering because he was constantly contradicting himself. And I would notice, but most of the time it wasn't worth picking a fight over. But he would fight me on it sometimes because I would point it out. And he would insist that he had never said the thing that he said. He definitely did say. And then he would say something like, "How are you so sure you're remembering correctly? Why are you always right?" And he definitely said the things that I heard him say and other people heard him say. So he had now at this point weaponized the safe word and was using it to ensure that I was hurt and on a constant basis. And he wasn't sorry anymore. I couldn't even tell you the last time he had apologized for doing it anymore because now sometimes he would bite me and I would yell out the safe word because it hurt so bad, and he'd clamp down even harder. And just for a second, just for good measure, before letting go. And sometimes I'd say the safe word and he'd grind his teeth down on my skin. And sometimes he'd smile after. Like a gloating grin. And during this time, I was filled with so much anxiety all the time that I was constantly nauseous, gagging daily, on occasion throwing up because of the pit that was in my stomach. I never told him about that, though. I was going and running away quietly to throw up in the toilet and rejoin our group of friends. But I felt so unwanted and ignored. And I would tell him that, and then he would reassure me that he wanted to be together and he loved me. He loved me more than I loved him, even. He would always insist that that was true, like that. I love you more. But he was like really serious about it. And looking back, I do believe that the way I was swept off my feet at the beginning of this relationship was 100% love bombing. And we were friends for a time. At least people would have thought that, actually. But I use the word friend very loosely because we had actually never spoke to each other outside of group chats we were in together when, like, a handful of times throughout the whole time that we knew each other, but did not talk to each other. So I wouldn't have even called him my friend until he found out I was single, waited a few weeks to reach out, and then we started a friendship. And then that friendship turned romantic. And then he made these huge romantic gestures. He wrote me the most beautiful love letter that I had ever read. He called me his soulmate. He talked about forever 1 month in. He told me he hadn't been in a relationship in 5 years. He thought he could never find love again before he met me. He said he wanted someone to grow with. He wanted to be a dad. He had all his names picked out. And I didn't have a preference because my feeling of it is if the timing is right and with the right person, I could. But if that doesn't work out in time or the time, you know, I'm not super pressed about it. But I started opening my mind up to the idea with him because it seemed so important to him. And I kept trying to talk to him to figure out where he was later on when I could tell things like were declining. And now all of a sudden he's telling me he's not sure he wants kids at all. In fact, he has never been attached to the idea of kids. And I told him that isn't what he said before. And he said he's allowed to change his mind. And I'm of the opinion that in a relationship, there are a few things that you are not actually allowed to change your mind without letting your partner know. I think that kids is one of them. It wasn't even important to me. And I think marriage is one of them. So I brought that up next. And I asked if he still wanted marriage. He said he wanted to marry me. And then he said, now, I'm not the, quote, I'm not the commitment guy. You know that. I didn't know that. Why are you dating me? In fact, he was telling me the exact opposite every day. He would tell me he still wanted to be together. He wanted to work on all of the problems. He wanted to, like, he wanted me at the end of everything. He did not want to break up. He made that very clear. And I have, though, caught him in lies before, but usually it was small stuff. And I didn't want to, it wasn't anything that ever seemed worth rocking the boat over, which isn't normal for me. I hate lies. And yet I ended up lying for him. So, but he had lied about big things. And he had also been caught lying by his friends numerous times. So this is something that he feels is acceptable to do. And everything reached a breaking point when he was about to leave for an extended period of time. We were not going to see each other very much, a few days out of every few months. And now suddenly he is dumping all of these problems that he has been having feelings about all of this time later. At one point he said he's been feeling this way a couple months. At another point he says he's been feeling this way for 6 months, immediately contradicting himself in the same conversation. And with no time to do anything about it. I arrive, never mind, I'm going to get to something later, but I literally arrived for 3 days for this conversation to happen and then leave. My cat just woke up and she's not usually awake right now. Hi, my love. It's really close to her dinner time. I should have fed her early. So no time to fix any of the problems all of a sudden because there are 3 days before he leaves. And he insisted he did not want to break up. And so he was expecting me to have a solution somehow magically. And I gave a number of solutions that would have a way forward for us to be together. But he refused to make any compromise whatsoever. And he said that the relationship was starting to feel like a responsibility towards the end. Also his words. So it wasn't a responsibility the whole rest of the time to him. And he was at this point basically flaunting that he would never prioritize me over anything. She's eating my laundry. Please don't cause problems. And I wasn't even asking for literally even the bare minimum. I was asking for so little. And I was watching him give exactly what I was needing in the relationship all over the place to anybody else who just happened to ask and just wasn't me. So, and he was never going to prioritize me over anything that would give him more fame or money. In fact, he said that himself. That was exactly why he was not going to compromise at all for a solution for us to be together, because he said he wanted to see how much fame and money he could get. And I just thought we wanted to be together. I thought that's what we both wanted because that's what he was still saying he wanted too. But then he also admitted to me that he had grown to resent me. And I have to be thankful that he said that bit out loud. A lot of these bits he said out loud, because that was the last push that I needed to get myself out. He had grown resentful, which I also pointed out that there was no reason, to feel that way. And he admitted that there was no reason for him to feel that way either. I think that it was because I'm someone who can communicate how I feel. But I don't know. I think I have a lot of theories and reasons why I believe things happened the way that they did and why he was lying all of the time. But he was resentful of me, was causing me physical harm every day, multiple times a day, despite me telling him over and over again to stop. He wasn't going to change, and he wasn't going to end the relationship. He was going to keep hurting me, and it was possibly going to escalate even further. So I broke up with him, and I didn't even want to, because I couldn't even see for such a long time after what it really was that had happened, that he had abused me. And in fact, we left things as we want to be friends, and he can never imagine not speaking to me again. And then he never spoke to me again. Outside of like a couple of exchanges where I needed to ask for my clothes to be shipped. So at least I got my clothes back. I had a whole closet full. However, he did throw away all of my other things without saying a word to me about it. Hundreds of dollars of things from my office were trashed without a word. And I didn't block him till 10 months later because I wanted an open door still. I really thought I wanted to be his friend. But I don't feel that way anymore. I do believe he was bottling up so many emotions, and he would never talk about how he felt. I think he did admit that he felt like he couldn't say it any sooner. Like there was just no possible way to say how he was feeling sooner than the absolute last possible chance. Like not even a chance, because 3 days before he left, that was actually a lie too. Also, he didn't leave for another week after I left. He brought me in, had this 3-day conversation. He was supposed to leave, and then he stayed for another week before he left with all of the friends that I was also meant to see, but he had lied to me about the dates too. But I do believe that that he was bottling up so many emotions that he was taking it out on me physically. I believe there was a moment where he knew that he didn't want to be in the relationship anymore, and instead of just ending it, he tried to push me away any way he knew would hurt me. And he knew all of the ways that would hurt me the most. And he knew he was hurting me. There was no way that he didn't know because of the safe word that he made. And he just didn't care. He was hurting me and he didn't care. And even looked like he was enjoying it sometimes. And I can look back now and I can see all these instances that were really major red flags. There was this one time that he pinned me down and asked me to try my absolute hardest to get him off of me. And I couldn't do it, obviously. And he said something to make the point that he was so much stronger than me that I wouldn't be able to fight him back. Fight back against what? What do you mean? You don't say shit like that to people? That's insane. And I was also sexually assaulted by my first boyfriend, and he knew that. He had stopped giving anything to the relationship, and he said that why was because he was just waiting for things to change on their own. He said he also didn't have the time or energy anyway to do the things that I was asking for, but then would constantly make any bit of time and energy for anybody and anything but me. And he would say he wanted more quality time. So then I would try to arrange things for us to do online because we were long distance, but then he would complain that he doesn't want to spend all of his time on the computer anymore. And then we'd be there in person, and all he wants to do is stay inside, play games on his computer, watch movies. He doesn't want to go out. And I'm not saying any of this next part to be mean. He lived in filth like I have never seen. And I've seen filth. This was the worst. He would spill things on the floor and never, literally never, clean them up. He got an ant infestation once and wasn't going to do anything about it because he said he said, bugs are normal in British houses. So I had to buy ant killer. And he wouldn't clean his bathroom for months and months and months, but would constantly complain about how bad it smelled. And I would tell him, that's mold. It's mold. He'd complain about being tired all the time too, which I don't know if that was a lie or not, but mold will do that too. But he would insist that it wasn't somehow without having cleaned in months, but it's not mold. When I met him, he was washing his clothes without detergent. Just it wasn't using that at all. And I don't know for how long before I met him. He was just running it with water and then hanging it on his filthy kitchen cabinets. And I felt bad. I felt bad because I felt like he needed someone to help him learn how to be cleaner. I thought he just didn't know how. And I listened to all of the struggles of his upbringing, and I was like, he just doesn't know how. Someone just needs to show him. And then I found out that he said he doesn't clean at all when I'm not there because he just waits for me to get there to do it. And I only found out about that after we broke up because he said it behind my back. I was doing all of the cleaning and laundry for him. Also, I had a separate bathroom. I want to make that clear. I wasn't using that bathroom. I had a separate bathroom that I cleaned for myself. I had cleaning supplies. I don't think he even actually knew I had cleaning supplies in there. But I had my own bathroom. All the cleaning, all the laundry, all of it, I was paying for. All of the like paper towels, like soap, all of that only stayed in the house so long as I was buying it. I would arrive and there would just not be toilet paper in the whole house. There were paper towels instead. And who knows for how long too. I was paying for food more than half the time because he would often push me into ordering food for us even if I had paid for the last meal or the meal before that. And I'm of the opinion now that I shouldn't have been paying for any food. None at all. But I wanted to at least, I thought I was being equal by at least doing like a back and forth. But I ended up paying for food more often than just going back and forth anyway. And he would do this to his friends all the time too. But I was also paying for every plane ticket and the cat sitter, which cost roughly the amount of a plane ticket to England. And he never offered to help me pay after the couple of times he did come here to visit me because he paid for the flights that we would both take. But that only happened twice at the very beginning. I have actually had a friend tell me that this is financial abuse, but I don't know enough about that to say for myself. But I was telling him that I couldn't afford it all by myself all the time because I was losing money. I was never able to work properly there, and he wasn't traveling at all to see me anymore, even though he said he would. That was like the basis of our entire relationship starting off. So then he agreed to pay for the cat sitter so that it would be basically paying half the cost of my travels. And he did that once and then never did it again, despite many more months of dating. And I was traveling often. I had to because he was worried that we weren't spending enough quality time together. And then all of the time that he would have ever extra, he would choose to not spend it on me because there was an available choice. And he chose not to spend it with me often. And I did everything short of just up and move there, which I was willing to do the whole time. And I told him that I was willing to do it, and he knew, but he insisted that I don't. He insisted not to. He was planning to move here. That was supposed to happen first. And then at the end of the relationship, he said maybe things would have been different if I lived there. If I lived there. Like I had said I would the whole time, and he insisted I don't. Maybe that could have saved the relationship. And I say all of this because I believe that people like this are genuinely dangerous. I believe he is dangerous. He was willing to lie. he was willing to do harm to someone he claimed to love more than anyone he has ever loved. His actions escalated. And I don't think that I'll be the last person that he hurts. And I felt like sharing my story was really important to warn people. I want people to see the signs that I refused to. I want you to listen to your body and get out as soon as possible. Tell your friends the truth and let them help you. I really thought I couldn't, because I had been sexually assaulted in a previous relationship, I just thought I was so much smarter to never, I was like, if someone ever laid their hands on me, I'd leave immediately. It would never happen a second time. But it just kind of happened so slowly over time and got worse and worse and worse until the point where there's no way to deny the fact that he was hurting me and he knew and didn't care. That's just the kind of thing that I keep repeating to myself when I'm like, but was it bad enough? It wasn't violent enough. But I was being hurt multiple times every single day, days and days and days and days for a month at a time in a row. And I'm not even speaking on most, because I did touch on other things, but I am not even speaking on most of the other things that, in my opinion, I do think that there are some things that are across a line that make you a bad person. I don't think that most people can be defined in a black and white, you're good or you're bad, but I do believe that there's a line that you can cross, and only bad people will do the things on the other side of that line. You know what I mean? And I watched a couple of things cross that line, and I truly feel now that my soul is so healed. I am light years beyond him. This was the last thing that I felt like I needed to do. That's my cat. Before I could move forward and hopefully never talk about him ever again, outside of maybe my stories that I want to tell about other shitty things he did anonymously, mixed in with the other stories I still have of shitty things that shitty exes did, because I think it's important for us to share our stories and our experiences. I think it's important for all of us to know that we deserve so much better than this. And I think that if people don't want us to talk about the shitty things that they do, then they shouldn't do shitty things. And this just felt so important to share. I always wanted to share my experiences. I always will. And that's kind of it. That's the end of everything I prepared. I reserve the right entirely to change my mind later and tell every story I want to. But for now, that's all I really have. I feel like from my soul I want to speak on, because I think that this can help other people. I think that it can help other victims. I have already talked to a number of... I only cry now when I'm talking about my friends who also dealt with such shitty things from shitty people. But I'm also so grateful for all of my friends who were with me through this whole thing, and my friends who also were experiencing similar sorts of situations at the same time, and we kind of went through it together. So I think they are the strongest people in the whole world, and they made me feel like the strongest people in the whole world today. Did I call myself people? I meant person. I feel like the strongest people... I did it again. I feel like the strongest person. They made me feel so brave. I felt impenetrable today. But I am going to go now because my friends are coming over, and we're immediately going to go become distracted by watching Love is Blind. I already watched all of it already, and I don't care. So thank you for listening. Thank you, everyone who gifted subs. I am going to be taking the rest of the week off from streaming. I have a video going out on Saturday, and I'll be back next week, and you won't hear about any of this again for a while, probably. But thank you all. I don't really even know what to do now. I think I'm just going to end. Go spread love all over the place on Twitch right now, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.